But in games like this, it's where the world class are found out from the class players, and I think that's the difference. This PSG team is world class, and Aston Villa are just happy to be at the party.
Frustration then for Aston Villa at the Parc des Princes, especially after Morgan Rogers got that opening goal, and they did nearly manage to keep it to 2-1 until Nuno Mendes scored in the 92nd minute. Bottom club Southampton coming up next for Villa on Saturday in the Premier League. PSG don't play this weekend, incidentally, so their next game is the second leg against Villa. Let's hear from Unai Emery now, speaking after the final whistle.
Good evening. More or less the expectation I had before the match in 90 minutes happened. The result 2-1 or 3-1, more or less, maybe is not a lot of difference between 2-1 or 3-1, because the Portuguese we will play at home next week, still being a huge challenge for us. But we can feel strong at home with our supporters in Villa Park. And the match we played today, more or less we needed to a lot of them defensively be strong. Very serious match defensively, disciplined defensively, defending well, low, more than normal. But even when we were losing 2-1, we had three approach in their box. One shoot of two shoot of Morgan Rogers and one of Marco Asensio. More or less, we are waiting our momentum in that moment to be close in the result. The last goal we conceded, okay, we had to accept it, but and in our mind it's not changing a lot, because we have to win at home now. We have to win, and more than one goal, the difference.
And you did score a goal here tonight. How crucial could Morgan Rogers' goal be going into the second leg?
Yeah, the first half we had 3 or 4 chances to get their box, not chances to score only one, and maybe another one with Rashford. And we knew before the match we needed to be clinical as well, and we scored 1 goal. We were clinical the first half, the second half not. But the match is the first leg, and the first leg, of course, the result is not good for us, but I think could be one possibility as well at home to try to get our momentum, to use our power as well, and try to show our power maybe, hopefully a little different than here, trying to get some more protagonists as well with the ball.
In Emery really trying to stay positive there, but how much of a killer blow do you think that late third goal was? If they had kept it to 2-1, how much more of an opportunity do you think Villa had, particularly as the second leg is at home for them?
I think Aston Villa would have snapped the hand off you if you'd have asked what score would have been, and it would have been a 2-1 score. They'd have jumped at that. But to give that goal up in the closing stages, it's, in many ways, it's not good enough, right? Because you've got such now much more difficult second leg. You've got to score 2 goals to get back into the tie, 3 goals, obviously, to beat PSG. And I know PSG have obviously been in great form in 2025, but like defensively, I just don't see it happening. I mean, the success that PSG have had not only against teams in the Champions League since the group stages, but also against English teams, especially this season. They've beaten, what, Man City, Liverpool, and obviously now Aston Villa. It's quite remarkable. But Villa just let themselves down in large parts of this game. You know, for me in particular, they were far too deep. They were inviting pressure. There was 6-man backline. In many ways, that was like all player behind the ball trying to protect that 2-1. And then the one chance they went forward, they gave up possession of the ball and punished themselves. Sloppy defending. When Disasi comes in for Matty Cash, you can't make stupid mistakes like that. You just simply can't. It's a defensive error. It's a defensive blunder against a quality player that can turn you inside out. Yes, but in games like this, it's where the world class are found out from the class players, and I think that's the difference. This PSG team is world class, and Aston Villa are just happy to be at the party.
Full of exciting young players, this team. One of them that's been really exciting recently is Désiré Doué.
Yeah.
He's contributed to PSG throughout the whole season, and he's been a bit of a super sub off the bench in the earlier part of this season. But in the last few games, he's been playing a starting role, and that goal was superb. But every time the ball comes, obviously he's not as good as Lamine Yamal, but he has that feeling about him. He's got magic in his feet when he gets the ball.
13 goal involvements in his last 12 games, and he's actually managed to lock himself a place in this PSG team, which we all thought maybe it was going to be much more difficult for him to do it, because if you look at the bench players, you've got Unai Emery and Bradley Barcola who are looking to get into this team, and that is not easy to stay in this Paris Saint-Germain team. But this is what Luis Enrique has created at PSG this season. He's created a battle. No longer is it the Neymars, the Messis, the Ibras, the Cavanis who have a lock in this 11. You have to earn your right to stay into this 11. And that includes Ousmane Dembele, who, again, had an excellent game today. I thought he was terrific. Obviously created 9 chances in the game. But Doué is such a youngster, only 19 years old. He's a special player. This was a very young PSG side, though. Remarkably young, 24 years old in 93 days. It's a young team that continues to change their complete philosophy as to how they want to have success. Remember what we witnessed from the Qataris when they first went over to Paris. They wanted to buy success. But unfortunately, the Champions League, that takes time. It took time for Manchester City. It took time for many other teams. And obviously, because of the history with your Bayern Munichs and your Real Madrids, they deserve to be in this competition in the later stages, more or not every single year. But PSG are trying to just change their philosophy, their ideology of how they want to go about business in the Champions League, let alone domestically. They've focused on team is now the star. Team chemistry, making sure the entertainment factor's clearly there so the supporters appreciate the style that Luis Enrique is trying to put out there tactically, and there's not many teams right now that can live with them. Something
that struck me earlier about the way that PSG have gone about building this season so far in the Champions League, when we saw that chart earlier on, they weren't great in the early stages of the league phase at all, were they? A lot of people were saying, you know, even towards the end of the league phase, are they going to get knocked out of the competition? They managed to squeak through, and now they're really shining. Is that going to be, with the change to the format of the Champions League in future seasons, people are going to look at this and say, well, that is a legitimate way of going about the Champions League season now. You don't really need to start that fast. I don't know if I agree with it. You don't necessarily need to start that fast, because look what happened to Manchester City, right? They got knocked out in that playoff game, and you don't want to go up against a giant in these playoff games and not make it to the knockout stage. That's not considered the knockout stage. That's a playoff game. So for some teams who unfortunately got the bad end of the draw, like a Manchester City, you're now out of the competition. So why put that as a risk? What I would see is teams going into the group stages, understanding that 8 games, if you get off to a great start, more often than not, you're going to qualify through in the top 8. Top 8 is where you want to be. Doesn't matter if you're Liverpool, who finished first, or whoever finished 8th. I think it was Villa who finished 8th, right? So whoever finishes in the top 8, doesn't matter what position you are, just be there. So you minus a game, you're not getting knocked out in the playoffs. But the performance has totally changed from what we've seen previously. Players are starting to believe, even throughout this campaign, more and more in Luis Enrique. Ousmane Dembele in particular, right? We remember the fallout from him in the early stages of the season. Now bought in, and what he's doing in 25 is remarkable. And now all of a sudden the youngsters are being much more competitive, including Doué, who had to be patient waiting to get into the team. Now it's Unai Emery on the bench and Bradley Barcola who are sitting on the bench, Gonzalo Ramos sitting on the bench. The weapons they have at their disposal is ridiculous. The one player that really stood out to me was Vitinha. Once again, I thought he was absolutely brilliant. 148 accurate passes in this game. It's not hard to do when you've got a whole team that's back defending and you're just playing square passes, but in some ways you've still got to find a way to win a game, and PSG did that. They found a way, 148 passes, chances created, 29 shots they took in this game. This PSG team, throughout this competition in 2025, is getting better and better and better. I'm just wondering now if they're looking at the other end of the bracket and thinking, oh, we're happy with this Arsenal result. See if they can go through, because I'm guarantee you they don't want to play against Real Madrid. Yeah, and if they play Arsenal, that would be a repeat of what we saw in the league phase when they played them.
When Dembele was angry.
Yeah, when Dembele was angry and didn't play. First legs of the quarters are done. Here's the updated bracket after today's games, and we've got the second legs to look forward to next week, of course, on Tuesday and Wednesday. All live for you, as always, on Paramount+.